What's up? Just dropping in with an extra video this week since I really wanted to squeeze in a Halloween cake before it's too late. I'm going to be stenciling the sides of this cake, so I'm starting off with this light purple buttercream, and I'm going to really take my time to get it as perfect as possible. That way I'll be able to lay the stencil down nice and flat. By the way, I'm using Swiss meringue buttercream. If you want to see how I make it, there's a link in the description below with the recipe and video. Now, in order to apply the stencil, I need this buttercream to be completely cold, so I'm going to let the cake hang out in the fridge for at least 30 minutes or so. My crumb-coated cake was already chilled overnight, so it won't take as long for that outer coat to chill, but you really want it to be rock solid before applying the stencil. While that's chilling, I'm going to start piping my flowers. I'm using a number 102 petal tip, and I'm basically just wiggling it up and down in a circle to form some really simple flowers. If you look at the opening of a petal tip, you'll see that there's a thin end and a thicker end. You want to hold the thick end towards the center of your flower. And then I decided, instead of piping centers with buttercream, I'm going to use some of this Halloween sprinkle mix. I also did some orange flowers as well with a number 104 petal tip, which is slightly larger, but it doesn't really make a huge difference which size tip you use for these kinds of flowers because they're just so simple and kind of random. After piping all the flowers, I'm going to put them in the fridge to chill until they're firm. That way I'll be able to peel them off the papers and then just place them right on top of my cake. Now my cake is chilled and it's time for the really exciting part, the stencil. Thanks to Sweet Stamps who sent this stencil to me as a gift. I will leave a link for you in the description if you want to go check them out. So I wasn't sure how this would actually turn out since I've never really used an intricate stencil like this before. But the gist of what you're supposed to do is you want to just get it lined up as flat as possible on your cake, and then it comes with these little holes that you can use to secure the stencil. I used toothpicks, but you could also use sewing pins, and I think those might be better because my toothpicks were a little big and they left larger holes in the buttercream. Once you get the stencil on, spreading the buttercream around is pretty easy. You just have to be slightly gentle, that way you don't end up moving the stencil around, although mine was pretty well secured, so it wasn't a big deal. Once you get everything evenly covered, you do need to go back and do a really good job scraping the excess off. You want to make sure you scrape it off until you can see all of the stencil. Otherwise, that excess buttercream might be too thick and it might mess up your design when you peel off the stencil. Next, just remove your toothpicks and really gently peel away the stencil. And that whole part was pretty easy, but lining it up again was what I found to be the hard part. So I ended up chilling the cake again after I applied the first stencil. That way I could overlap it without messing up the design. And I also made sure to wipe off the stencil really well between each use. But since the stencil didn't perfectly match the size of my cake, I did end up having these seam lines. So just know that if you're gonna do a stencil, you wanna make sure that you kind of plan out where you're gonna line it up. That way the seams can be on the sides or the back of the cake and not where you want the front of the cake to be. And now for the final decorations. I used a tip 4B to pipe rings of shells all around the top of my cake. Next, I'm just peeling my flowers off of their parchment squares and placing them randomly all over the top of the cake. I did try to sort of make sure I had them leaning at all different angles for a little bit of visual interest. And since we have spider webs on the sides of the cake, obviously we need some spiders. So I'm using a tip number 6 to pipe the body, and then a smaller tip number 2 to pipe 8 legs on each spider. To finish the cake, I'm piping a purple shell border along the bottom with a tip number 32. And then I'm doing an orange beaded border on top of that with a tip number 4. And I do have a video explaining how to pipe shells. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link for you below. So what do you think about this stencil? I thought it was really fun, but I would definitely like to get some more practice with that technique. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about stencils. If you guys are into them, I will definitely do a little bit more work with them and make a full tutorial for you. Thanks so much for watching, and happy Halloween!